So a common problem with these valve covers here is that they leak. Whether they're small block Chevy V8s or they're the straight 6, there's several reasons why. While the engine is running at higher RPM like on the highway, the oil level starts rising above the the location of the gasket on these older engines. The newer engines have the walls cast tires, so the higher walls prevent the as many oil leaks. Another reason is that the thin metal, and you might be able to see it just from here, bends even with the little metal pieces that are supposed to extend the pressure, spread out the pressure. You can even see the mark that from the extender thing. It still bends the metal a little bit and causes it to leak. And so there's a couple solutions. Vortec solution was to put the bolts right through the middle to spread out better rather than on the sides. If you have money and a common engine like a small block, you could get aluminum valve covers. The metal is thicker and so they don't distort as easily. Another common problem is that people don't clean off the surfaces very well, and it is a hassle because they when you use a bunch of silicone gasket sealant, it gets really time consuming to scrape it all off. And this, I probably spent 15 minutes on it yesterday. There's still a little bit left over. I've seen people that get close to this solution but not quite. They just go off in the wrong direction. I've seen this truck actually. It came with somebody had put 2 valve cover gaskets on it. They're so close. They must have realized that the metal bends and they didn't feel like spending the 15 minutes to scrape off the silicone. So they instead bought 2 gaskets, which was probably more than they make in an hour. So it's actually going backwards. But 2 gaskets, they probably thought that would compress better and seal better that way. And then of course they didn't use any gasket maker on it either. And so it was just, yeah. And so basically the solution on these, the cheapest solution, is just to spend 15 minutes with a razor and a brush and a rag. Clean the surface off. And then take a block and a hammer and hammer it back into place. That's it. You don't have to spend 20 bucks on an extra gasket. Put 2 gaskets on and hope that it works. You don't have to caulk it way up everywhere with silicone. If you just clean it up real good, put a few beads on this kind, because you can see the gasket is supposed to be attached to the valve cover. Just put a few beads, hold it in place, let it dry long enough that you can hold it upside down without the gasket falling off, and then just screw it down at a normal, reasonable pressure. Don't overdo it or you'll just bend it again. And that's the solution. Okay, so there's 2 ways you could check for these bent surface. One is just put it on a block. I don't know if it can be seen very well, but there's a little bit of a bend here. Another way is to use a straight edge, and like that. This one's not so bad right there, but some of them are. Like this one. It shows up on a straight edge, but you can't really see with the camera from that angle. But there's a bit of a bend. So all you have to do is just put it on the block like that. And then hammer it flat. And now it should seal better. So that one's fine now. And just go around to all the bolt holes. The reason why I started off using the end was that when I do it upside down, these things to hold the wires in place get into the way. They're important to keep though because it keeps the wires from rusting against hotter stuff. The original wires would have come with asbestos lining to keep them from grounding out or melting. Now we use plastic wire looms and stuff to keep, or electrical tape sometimes even, but looms are better to keep them from melting. And if you just put the looms in here, that should protect the wires. So there's some distortion there. I need to be more gentle with my hammering because this metal is really thin. Yeah, this is the one that I bent up. Just take it easy on this and don't hammer too hard. And this does tend to bend the little edges out, and you can try to fix that if you want, but it's more important that the gasket surface is flat than that these even exist at all. Oh, they are nice to have if you can keep them. It's cleaned up mostly well enough to seal, and it's flattened out, so I just need a few dabs of silicone to hold it in place. And I'm not going to use the silicone on the side of the head, between the head and the gasket, because one, I don't think it'll be necessary because the head's clean too, and two, I might have to pull it off if I have to do, since I adjusted the valves. And so if I have to pull the valve cover off to do a running adjustment on these valves, then I'd have to buy a new gasket if I caulked it on the surface between the gasket and the head. Okay, so the tabs I was talking about are these things right here, and if these were still in good shape, the lip there, then I would even need silicone to hold it in place while upside down, except maybe right here since there's a big space there and it's all curvy. But like places like here, that's what these tabs are for. Also right here, in theory, if I was precise enough, I could theoretically use a plier like this to hold the gasket matching part, and then carefully bend this up with a needle nose. But that's I'll admit I'm not that precise, so with the tools I have, and so I'm just going to put a dab here in a few places, try to use the tabs as much as I can, and then let it dry. Then I could turn it upside down and put it on the head. So if I just give it like 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes or more, the silicone should be sticking the gasket to the cover well enough that I could turn it upside down and put it on the head. Now with small block Chevys I've had, when you stick, this is the bolt, and this is the thing that's supposed to spread out the weight or the pressure onto the around the metal, so you don't bend it as easily. Small block Chevys I've had, you could go like this, and some of the gaskets will hold the bolts in place, but this isn't one of those. So I'll just leave it alone for a while and stick it on the head. It turned out that I didn't put enough silicone to keep the cork gasket on long enough to after I turned it upside down for it to stay in place, but I was able to use the tabs here to hold it in place and put the gasket in. Now I'm going to just stick a screwdriver in, make sure it's centered at all the holes, make sure that nothing went out of place. And of course it needs to be kept loose until all of them are in. That way if you have to move it around to make bolt holes line up, you still can. Also, another reason not to crank these down very tight, in addition to them distorting or bending the metal here and causing oil leaks, is that these are actually very small bolts and they break easy. So you just have to be gentle with them. If you're not sure how tight to do it, then look up some torque specs, use a torque wrench, and then it'll give you an idea. I've done this long enough that I get the feel for it. But if you're not used to it, then you really should use torque wrench rather than risk breaking these things off into the head, because trying to get them back out is a hassle once the bolt's broken. Trying to get the bolt back out once the head's broken off is a hassle. And part of the problem with these leaking is somebody, it looks like, went through it one time and over torqued these bolts, and now these are bent up at the ends, but they're hard to get off the bolts. I don't think they're supposed to come off on this model, so I'm stuck with them unless I buy new replacements. But this should still go through once again. This should still be good enough to prevent oil leaks since I did the prep work. So now I have the valve cover back on, and it's torqued down. There's no torque specs in my 70's manual for these bolts online. Sometimes people say 45 foot-pounds, but that seems excessive to me. Mine's probably more like 20 foot-pounds. Now they usually don't leak when I flatten out the cover surface and when I flatten out these areas and when I clean it up properly, even without silicone gasket all over the place.